Okay, everyone. So now we will start the class. So hello, everyone. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good.
That's good. So yeah, I hope everyone is doing well. So today, last lesson we talked about it was sort of like our sample lesson last week, and just to like basically get you guys used to how I teach, and I hope that it also went well. Today I see that we have a bunch of new and also old students who just joined today. So today we will have basically a full class. So I want to ask one person in here if you are a new student. So I see someone named Aiden Gao. Are you a new student to this class? I think Aiden's an old student, right? Oh, you are a new student. Okay, that's awesome. So I didn't see you last week, but that's okay. But today we're just talking about the introduction to biology, and basically, my name is Jimmy. And basically, if you have any questions about the class, you may just raise your hand whenever you like to, or just unmute and ask some questions if you're confused on the topic. But yeah, other than that, we're very happy to have you in this class. So that's very awesome. And I see that we also have another new student who has the name Huntrix. Do you know if you're also a new student?
Oh,
And
Huntrix is Brian. Huntrix is just a band. He just likes it.
oh, Brian. Okay, got it. All right, that's awesome. Okay, so with that out of the way, so welcome to the second class today. And it looks like we have
Teacher,
a new student to join. Yes, Isaac?
do you recognize my voice?
Yes, I know. This is Isaac, right?
Yeah,
I always remember you, Isaac.
I was usually the one with the most questions.
Yeah. I'm very happy to have you back this season of class, and I hope that everyone is very happy to be back too. To the old students, of course, and the new students. I'm very happy to have you guys here. So I hope that you guys are very happy to be in my class. And I see that we have a new student called PL. Do we know or if PL would like to unmute or type in the chat if you're a new student or an old student? Oh, okay then. So I'll just assume that you're probably an old student then. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, today we will talk about the introduction to biology. And before we start, I want to, oh, so you're a new student. Okay, that's awesome. So, PL, do you want me to call you PL or do you go by another name? All right. Okay, cool. So yeah, welcome to this class, and I hope that you will enjoy this class. So my name is Jimmy, as you can see on my name tag. And if you have any questions, you can just unmute or raise your hand to ask me. But yeah, with that out of the way, so let's start today's class about the introduction to biology. So before we start introduction to biology, I want to just go over some stuff. So in this our technically first lesson, I do want people to basically take notes on some part. So if you guys have like a notebook or a pencil, you guys can take that out and you guys can take some notes in there. And I forgot to make an announcement in the WeChat group about this, but next week we will definitely be having mandatory note taking. But this class, you guys don't have to take notes, but it is recommended that you guys do to learn the maximum amount of knowledge. Okay, so with that out of the way, we'll talk about what is biology. So basically, I know that everyone here basically signed up for this class to learn about biology, right? And biology, in simple terms, is just the study of life and living things, right? So this is the definition on the right here. Biology is the study of life and living things. But what does that really mean? Like, what is the more specific definition for biology? Because this is only just like a really broad term, right? Like a non-specific term, the study of life. So biology is basically the study of life and living things, right? As we said over here. And a biologist is a person who studies the living things, right? So in biology, we'll talk more about this, but basically in biology, they study living things, and living things are called organisms, right? And an organism is any living thing in the world. So think of any living thing, ants, humans, monkeys, dogs, even like microorganisms like cells. But we'll talk more about those stuff later on in the lesson. But essentially, biologists just study living things like organisms, right? And plants are also organisms because they're living. So anything that lives basically is an organism. And we'll talk about what classifies as a living thing later on in this lesson. So, but basically, many organisms, they grow, they basically reproduce, they change. This is supposed to be, say, a G, and they also die. So not everything lives forever, right? And we know that because, uh, everyone probably knows that living things, they obviously die. And basically, the series of change that an organism can go through is called a life cycle. So what this last sentence means is just that how an organism change, um, like how an organism change over the course of its life is called a life cycle, right? Like a cycle. But we'll talk about life cycle in like another lesson because a life cycle is very complex and has many things in it. And PL just ask, are viruses a living thing? And it's your opinion. So um, a lot of people, oh, we have someone entering the class. Okay. Hello, Olivia. Right now we're just doing our introduction to biology. So yeah, you can take out a notebook if you want and write down the notes, but for this lesson, you don't have to. Okay, so PL asked a really good question about if viruses are living things. And basically, what I think is that viruses, well, the thing about viruses is that they don't classify as a living thing to most scientists because they don't exhibit the same sort form of behavior as life would. Like they don't react to a lot of stuff that you do. Like you have a stimuli, right? Which is basically like, let's say if you touch the virus or if you basically do something to harm the virus, they wouldn't do anything to stop it. So viruses are sort of like tiny little organic robots that basically live and float in random places. So in my opinion, I don't think viruses are living. Because they're more like robots. And we'll talk about why viruses aren't exactly living, right, in the sense that we think it is, in later on in the lesson. Okay, so this is a life cycle. This is just a simple life cycle. We can see that a life cycle is typically diagrammed or drawn in a circle, right? Which is why it's called a life cycle. And an important part of biology is studying how the organisms basically live in their life cycle. And biology is also referred to as life science or natural science because it is the study of life forms in nature, right? Natural science basically just means science that we could observe, right? We could see the science happening and stuff like that. And that's basically biology, right? It's life science. And there's other stuff that are life science like biochemistry, all that crazy stuff, and also environmental science. But biology is one of the life and natural sciences. So everyone remember this, right? Okay. So yeah, just to recap, biology is the study of life and the life cycles that an organism goes through. So here's basically where the word biology came from, right? It's very important to understand where a word came from, the origination of a word. It's always important to basically know that. Um, okay, so Ryan asked me, can you tell me when we have to write, please and thank you? So yeah, I'll tell you guys what to write. So in this slide, I don't want anyone to write anything yet because this is basically just telling you where the word came from, but we'll definitely talk about more things that you guys need to write. Okay, so biology comes from the Greek word bios, okay? So we can see biology, bios, right? And bios basically just means life, right? And logia, which is the second part of the word, or logi in biology, means the study of. So biology literally translates to the study of life. And you guys will see Greek names a lot of the times in biology because scientists have this crazy obsession with basically naming every single organism based off of a Greek or Latin word. So yeah, this is basically where the word biology came from. And Aristotle, which is this guy who lived many thousands years ago, 2000 years ago exactly, is said to be the first biologist. He basically developed the first study of the natural world, right? So this is basically the first biologist. He's pretty awesome, but he's obviously dead, like most of the organisms will be. But we'll talk more about death in another lesson. Okay, so as we know, biology has there's different types. Or actually, hold on a second. I do want everyone to write down the definitions of biology. So I do want everyone, if you choose to, because in this lesson you don't have to write down anything. I'll be more lenient in this lesson, but I recommend everyone write something down. So I do want everyone to write down the definition of biology, the definition of a biologist, and the definition of an organism. So I'll give everyone 2 minutes to do that right now, and then we'll move on after everyone's done that, or after we've waited 2 minutes. So all right, is there anyone who still needs more time to finish the writing?
Me.
Oh, that's okay. So just remember, you guys don't have to write down everything, especially not this part. Don't take notes on this part. This is just like a huge paragraph. So yeah, but just the simple definitions over here. And then again, just to reiterate, you guys don't have to take down notes, but I recommend everyone do so. But I'll be more lenient in class for today. So yeah, and if there's anyone who has a question, you guys may ask it in the chat or raise your hand and use your voice. Oh yeah, and also another thing, so for this class, the new students in here, or actually the old and new students, I didn't do this last class, but for this class, I will be sort of sending the slide into the chat so you guys can look at it later or during class, like if you guys are trying to take notes or something. So I sent the link into the chat for the Google Slides. You guys can click on it and follow along, or you guys can just stay in the meeting and do that. Okay, so I think we can move on now. All right. So, there's different types of biology, and the different types of biology, also sorry, there's different types of biologies, right? Different types, different studies of biology. And the reason why there's different studies of biology is because scientists, they like to basically specify what they research, right? And that's basically a really good idea because if you want to major in biology in the future, like you want to study biology, it's always good to specify. It's always good to learn one type of biology only because biology is a huge study, right? Biology is so big, like it's just studying different types of things, plants, animals, fungi, cells, microorganisms, all that stuff. There's so many biological studies that you basically cannot study all of them in your entire lifetime. I mean, you could, but it'll be really, really difficult, which is why I say that it's impossible to do it. But if one of you guys manage to do it one day, then I will be very happy of that. So that's awesome. But anyways, so I'll talk about the different types of biologies. So the first type of biology I want everyone to know is anatomy. And also, everyone, please start taking notes while I am speaking to maximize efficiency. All right. So anatomy is basically the study of bodily structure of organisms. And to simplify this, because I know that some of you guys probably don't know these big words, basically anatomy is just the study of the insides of an animal. It's basically studying the parts of an animal, right? Like the organs, the heart, lungs, skin, everything, like the parts of an animal, just a general definition for anatomy. We also have botany or botany. I don't really know how to pronounce that, but botany is just the study of plants, right? It's where biologists or botanists, as we call it, they study plants. And I just saw that we have a new student who just joined, Anna. So hello, Anna. And I think I had you last year, I think, or last the first on the first lesson. So welcome to the class. And then if you can get out a notebook and a pen to take notes, that would be awesome. And right now we're just talking about the different types of biology. And the slide is in the chat. Slide is in the chat, like the slideshow, if you want to go back and take some notes, because we did go over a few slides. All right, so botany, whatever you call it, I don't really know. It's just study of plants, right? Scientists, they study the parts of a plant, like how to plant a plant, how to basically like the very small cells of a plant. And we also have ecology. And ecology is a pretty nice it's honestly, in my opinion, my favorite type of study. And this is the study of relationships between various organisms. So what does this sentence mean? It just basically means how organisms in an environment interact with each other. So let's say you got an ant and a bee together, right? Ecologists will study how ants and bees behave when they interact with each other, when they sort of like um well, you guys know what interact means, right? That's basically how what ecology is. It studies how animals or organisms basically react to each other or interact with each other. Okay, microbiology is also one of my favorite study of biology. And microbiology basically means the study of tiny organisms. So cells, protists, bacteria, maybe viruses if you think that they're living organisms, but I don't really think viruses are organisms. Like they're not living. So yeah, microbiology is pretty dang awesome because it is the study of extremely tiny things that we cannot see. You need a microscope to become a microbiologist. So yeah, And I hope that everyone has been following along. And if you guys have any questions, please unmute and ask or type your answer or type your question into the chat. Because it is always good to ask questions when you have a teacher or when you have something you're very confused about, because a teacher always or most of the time will have an answer for you. Ryan just asked if do you have to write this one? Yes, it is recommended to write this, but then again, it is the first lesson, first actual lesson in biology, so you guys don't have to write this down, but because I'll be more lenient about this. And but I do recommend everyone to write this down. So I'll give a few minutes for those who haven't wrote this down to basically write these. And on the next slide, when I basically move on, I hope that you guys can take some notes on the other slide when I am lecturing. So yeah, and another thing about this class to the new students, of course, that it's about how I teach. And basically, I am more lenient and less strict about taking notes and basically, all that stuff. So, because one thing is that it is your choice to learn, and I can't really stop you if you don't pay attention. So, yeah. And remember that learning is always good for you. And Anna asked a good question. She said that I thought germs were living. Okay, so the thing is, some germs, like bacteria, they are living, but viruses, I think they're a type of germ, but germ is just like a germ. The word germ, G-E-R-M, is just a general definition for an microorganism or a tiny living thing, like a cell, that causes harm to the human body or cause infections, right? Like when you get sick from the flu is a type of virus and it is called a germ. But germs, the general definition of a germ, like bacteria that can cause infections and viruses that can cause infections, if you are basically defining germs as that, bacteria is living, all right? Bacteria is a very, very small organism, smaller than human cells, and it is a living organism, but viruses are not. Viruses are not living organisms. And we'll talk more about why viruses are not an organism. So when you guys are talking about germs, yeah, there are good germs, I guess, but I'm not really sure what the definition of a germ is, but if I can just Google it. Right, so the general term of a germ is just germs referring to like very small microscopic bacteria, viruses, and other small cells that cause disease. So essentially, there aren't really good germs. However, there's one exception, and there's something called a bacteriophage. It is a virus that kills bacteria, and that is a good germ, I guess, because one, it is a germ because it causes infections, right? And two, it is good because it doesn't kill humans. It doesn't target human cells. They only kill bacteria. So I guess that's like the only good germ in the entire world, bacteriophages. But yeah. But then again, the word good is a very subjective word, meaning that it has different meanings the way you interpret it. So yeah. All right, so I will move on. So another few types of biology is pathology. Pathology is the study of cause and effects of diseases. So scientists in the field of pathology or pathologists, they study the cause of a disease. They study why someone gets sick, and they study the effects of a disease, meaning that they study how the disease affect a person. That's what pathologists is. And as Anna have said, pathologists, they study germs, right? So that's pretty awesome. We also have pharmacology, or it's basically just studying the use and effects of drugs. They study how drugs can be used by the body and how drugs can affect the body. We also have physiology, which is the study of functions of living organisms and their parts. So physiology is somewhat like anatomy, right? Anatomy is the study of parts of an organism, but physiology is the study of how those parts function, how those parts help the organism to do amazing things, right? That's what the difference of physiology and anatomy is. So physiologists, they study, oh, hold on, wait, there's someone who just joined. Oops, wait, I forgot to admit them into the thing. Okay. And taxonomy, is just the study of classifications of organisms. And we'll talk about taxonomy or taxonomy. How do you even pronounce it? Okay, but we'll study more about that in a different lesson because this is a pretty complex topic. But it's just basically studying how scientists put organisms into groups, right? How they basically classify them. And we'll talk more about that later, but just know the definition of taxonomy. And Anna asked a really good question also, and she asked, what are drugs? So, drugs, the general definition from the Oxford Dictionary, drugs is basically, oh, sorry, I'm searching that up right now because I don't really have a good definition for drugs. Um, okay, so drugs, their definition is that they're a medicine, right? A medicine is something that helps the body to do stuff, right? Like fight a disease or something. So drug is a medicine or other substances or other things that can have like a effect when ingested, like a physiological effect. Basically, it's just something that if you take by mouth or like any other part, like if it goes into your body, and it has an effect on you, right? A good or bad effect, then it is classified as a drug, right? And it has to be a substance, like a type of molecule, like something that you can actually take in by the mouth or like any other parts. And that's basically what a drug is. So drugs can be bad or good, right? Let's say back, antibiotics. Antibiotics are a type of drugs that help you fight bacterial infections, right? So antibiotics, when you take it, they help you feel better because they're fighting bacteria that are causing you harm. And there are also bad drugs like addictive drugs, drugs that you get addictive to, like cocaine, heroin, all that stuff. Those are classified as drugs because when you take it, they have an effect on you. And basically, when you take them, you get addicted to it because the drug makes you feel good, but it's also bad for your body because it kills some of your cells. It does really, really bad things to you. Okay, so yeah, we will be moving on. So our second part of the lesson, and I just realized someone is joining again. Okay, Olivia just got kicked out, I think. Okay, second part of the lesson today will be characteristics of life. And basically, we'll just talk about the ability or traits of life, right? So this is the part where we'll talk about why viruses are not living organisms. So all living organisms share one thing in life. Every single living thing, okay, every single living thing down to the tiniest living thing, they all share these characteristics or traits. So one of the traits that they all share is that they're all made of one or more cells. So every living thing, every single living thing that you can see that exists are made of something called a cell. And what is a cell? A cell is basically a basic unit of life. It is the smallest unit, the smallest type of life, and it's called cells. An example would be in your blood, you have something called red blood cells. That's why your blood is red because we have something called red blood cells, right? And these are what red blood cells look like. They're like these tiny little round thingies with like a dent in their structure. These are called cells. They're very, very small. You can't see them with your eye. You have to use a microscope. And this is what a microscope did. And this is how you see the red blood cells. This is under a microscope. Now, another characteristic of life is that they need energy to live. So what is energy? Energy is basically a measurement of like the ability to do work. Basically what it means that it's basically how things move. And basically how things happen, right? We all need energy, right? there's different types of energy, and we'll talk about the different types of energy in another lesson, but just know that energy is the ability to do work. You need energy. Everything has energy to basically do stuff, right? When you run, when you move your hands, you're using energy. Actually, you're not really using it. You're kind of transferring the energy to somewhere else. When you move your hand, right, your muscles are moving, right? And your muscles are made of cells. And when your muscles move, you generate heat. And that's where the energy goes. When you're using up the energy in your cells, like the sugar or like other stuff. But just know that basically when you're waving your hand, like what I'm doing right now, the energy in your muscles are being used to basically it's being transferred either to your air or into the air as heat or like into your skin. Okay, so energy is a really difficult topic, but just know that all cells they need energy, right? And I'm pretty sure that everyone knows the general definition of energy. But yeah, all cells and all organisms need energy to live. So sorry if I am going a little bit too fast or these words are too big for everyone, but just know that all organisms they need energy to live. Now, another thing about organisms, they all respond to a stimuli. Okay, so what is a stimuli? The definition of a stimuli is anything that cause a response. So, an example of a stimuli would be light, temperature, or touch. So basically, if you touch an organism like a little bug or an animal, what do? They react to it. They either bite you or they run away or they turn around and look at you. So when you're petting your dog, they react to it by basically relaxing, right? And if you touch a bug, they will most likely run away. And that's their response to stimuli. And stimuli, it's not confused to how, don't get stimuli confused with how animals react. All right. Stimuli is something that gets an animal to react. So when you touch an organism, right, that's you basically stimulating them. But the touch is a stimuli, right? When you touch an organism, the touch is basically the stimuli. All right. But yeah, all organisms they respond to a type of stimuli, right? Like light or like temperature or touch. So an example in humans is that when it's cold, you basically start to shiver, right? That's you responding to the stimuli, and the stimuli is the coldness, right? When it's cold, you shiver or you put on clothes, and that's you responding to the stimuli. You're responding to the cold. Okay, is there anyone who is sort of confused on some parts? So please ask if you guys are confused. And if you guys are not and you guys have done taking notes, we can move on. So I'll give everyone a few minutes to basically take notes and stuff. All right, so Ryan asked, everything has cells, right? So when you say everything, do you mean like living organisms? Because not everything has cells. If you're take oh, so yeah, so every single living organism has cells. Okay, every single living organism, every living thing that you see, every living thing that exists in this entire universe, or actually we're not sure about that, but everything that exists on Earth has cells, right? Yeah, basically, yes, every living organism has cells. And we'll talk about what cell is in like another lesson. Like basically what the structures of a cell, what cells are made up of, and why cells are important. But just know that the definition of a cell is they're the most basic unit of life, meaning that they're the smallest unit of life. Nothing could get smaller than a cell, or nothing living can be smaller than a cell. They can't be any more complex than a cell. So cells are made up of stuff, but the stuff that cells are made up of are not living. So essentially, all living things are made up of non-living things, and we'll talk more about what those non-living things are. So biology or cells, what we are made of is actually pretty interesting because we are all made up of non-living things like atoms and molecules, but we'll talk more about what these are. So life is pretty interesting because everything that we see, like our hands, our face, they're all made up of non-living things. Or they're made up of living things, but the living things that are on them are made of non-living things. So yeah, that's pretty confusing, but you guys will know in the future lessons because how I like to teach, I like to take everything slow. I like to review everything every single class so that you guys can actually learn something, right? When you're basically when you're going really fast in a course, you guys won't learn anything. But if we go really slow, we analyze every single detail, we interact with notes, we will actually learn something from it. And of course, also ask questions. Um, in life, there's nothing called there's no dumb questions asked. Every single question that you ask means that you want to learn something. So any question that you ask in this class, there's no dumb questions, right? So just ask away, ask whatever you like, and I'll answer them. Okay, life functions. Okay, life functions. So we'll talk about this. So all organisms or living things, right? They must have the potential or ability to carry out certain things, to carry out certain behaviors. They have to do certain things to be classified as living organisms. And these things that they do to be classified as living organisms are called life functions. And life functions are basically processes or things that an organism must do to help it survive. So all organisms, humans especially, animals, so humans, animals, microorganisms, plants, funguses, trees, grasses, everything that is living, they do these things called life function. So we have all of these little animals over here or organisms over here, they all exhibit life functions. Jellyfishes, amoebas, which are cells, these little cute little cells, bacteria, plants, fungi, humans, protists, which is another type of cell that we'll talk more about, they all exhibit a life function. So that's the most important thing about this lesson, and it's about learning about the life functions. And this is where actually we'll talk about why viruses are not living things. Okay, so the first life function is called growth, and I want everyone to basically take notes on this part right here. So please, everyone, take some notes on here. And basically, growth is an increase in the number of cells. So does anyone here know what it means to, or sorry, actually, that was a really bad question, but basically, we all know that we grow, right? So we all grow, right? We all grow up. When we were babies, we're really, really small, right? And then we become big, like what we are now. We're very, very big humans, if you want to say it like that. But we've grown very, very big, right? Compared to how we were a few years ago. So I know that everyone here knows that as humans, we grow taller, right? So last year, you're shorter than you are. So you're taller than yourself last year. So you're definitely taller right now than you were last year, is what I meant. And how we grow taller, how humans grow taller, is in increasing the amount of cells. So we all know humans, every single or living thing are made of cells, right? And basically, when you grow, more cells are added to yourself. More cells are added, more cells grow by duplicating themselves. More cells basically grow by splitting off into two different cells. That's how cells grow. And we can see here a plant, right? A plant is growing from small to big, and it's basically adding more cells to itself. And Anna just said food and water. Yes, food and water is an important things to growth because when cells are making more cells, right? Like when we are growing, we need food and water because food, we take the energy in the food to grow. We also take the matter or the things in the food to make more cells. So it's pretty interesting because growth is not like basically you stretching out, right? It's not how it works. You're not stretching out when you're growing. It's basically just more cells being added to your body. So this year, you have more cells than you did last year. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. So yeah, and over here, some organisms who live in better environments, they need more cells. And as more cells are made, the organisms go through a process of growth. All right. So to better help you guys visualize how growth works, I have a little video of a salamander forming inside of an egg. So let's watch this short little video real quick. So I will explain some things about this. And this is a really, really interesting video also. Okay, and Ryan, just say you may, yeah, Ryan, you may leave, and I'll see you in the next lesson. So yeah, I hope you learned something. So yeah.
Teacher, I think you didn't turn on the sound.
Okay. All right. So I just want to go back a little bit and talk to you guys about this. So as we can see here, so this is a salamander egg. And what a salamander is, it's basically this cute little lizard looking thingy. And this is it in an egg. So right here, this is one singular cell. This is one cell, one giant cell inside of an egg, right? This is one cell that you're looking at. This is a cell that we are looking at, everyone. And it turns into two. One cell becomes two cells. And then two cells, they eventually become four cells. And this is how you grow. You add more cells to yourself, right? And four cells becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, 16 becomes 32, and 32 becomes 64. It just keeps on doubling, right? Just like that, you have so many cells now. And as you grow, as the cell grow, right? As the lizard or the salamander grow, it basically starts to have even more cells in it. You can see there's so many cells that you can't even see the individual cells in there. And of course, the salamander obviously starts to make its shape, right? And as all of this is happening, there's more cells that are multiplying. You can see the little cells in here moving, right? And eventually, salamander hatches and becomes this looking guy. So yeah, this is basically how everything grows. One little cell like this guy over here, one little cell, this one cell became thousands or even millions of cells. That's how growth works. And it's just really amazing to look at all of these things, right? So yeah, that's awesome. All right, so growth is one of them. Another thing is reproduction. Now, reproduction is the creation of new organism from a creature's own cells. And we'll talk more about how reproduction works in another lesson, but in simple terms, it's basically how new organisms are created from a creature's own cells, like a living being's own cells. So as we know, we all have cells, right? Every single organism have cells. And they use those cells to create another version of themselves. But it's actually a lot more complicated than just one organism turning into another one. So we'll talk more about that in another lesson. Okay, so over here I wrote a new organism is created from parent organisms. So the new organism is referred to as offspring. So yeah, this is really information heavy, and then again, you guys don't have to take notes on everything. This is just like an introductory course to biology, just to basically explain everything. Okay, so let's look at this video of how reproduction works. So as we know, we looked at the eggs, right? And basically these are tadpoles, and tadpoles are eggs that come from frogs. And frogs, they lay these eggs, and that's how frogs make more frogs. So reproduction just basically means an animal or an organism making more of itself. These are little tadpoles and they're wiggling around. And obviously, they keep on growing and eventually they hatch. These little tadpoles. Okay, so yeah, that's basically how reproduction works, and that's pretty awesome. So yeah, I do see that a lot of students are leaving because they got other classes that they must attend to. So yeah, okay. So for the students that are here, we'll keep on talking about these. So nutrition. Okay, so this is the part where PL asked about how viruses are not living things. So as we know, all organisms, they eat, right? They have to feed on something, right? All living organisms, they need something called nutrients. Nutrients are just things that an organism need to eat to stay healthy, to basically keep on living. And organisms can be classified into two different types based on how they get their food. We have autotrophs, which are organisms that can make their own food. Organisms that can make their own food are organisms like plants. Plants make their own food. They don't eat stuff, they make their own food. Heterotrophs are organisms that cannot make their own foods and they get nutrients by eating other living beings. So we eat other animals, right? We eat cows, pork, pigs, chicken, and we are heterotrophs. We are heterotrophs, and we eat chicken, we eat meat, right? And that's basically us getting food. And most of the times, we are always getting nutrients or food from other animals or other organisms. We also eat plants, right? Plants are a type of organism, they're living. So yeah, that's us. We are heterotrophs. This is us right here, right? Awesome. So yeah, this is basically, now the thing is viruses, they actually don't eat food. Viruses, they don't get nutrients. So that's the thing about viruses. If you're missing one characteristic of life, if you're missing one life function, you are not a living thing, right? Viruses, they don't eat stuff, so they don't take nutrients, right? They don't eat food, they don't make food, so they are not living organisms. So that's the sad part about viruses. But I guess it's also a good part because then you won't feel bad about killing them when you're washing with soap. So yeah. Viruses, they're more like robots. We'll talk about viruses more in another lesson to basically see why they are not living organisms or how they work. But just know that viruses, they're kind of like robots. They don't think, or not all, or actually, sorry, that was a really bad thing. That was a really bad way to put it. Viruses, they don't eat food. They don't do things that living things do. That's why they are not living things. Viruses, they are not living things. But some scientists, they do think that viruses are living things. But we'll talk more about that because that is also a pretty complicated topic. But just know that all organisms, they need to eat food. All right, so here I have a video to show you guys how microorganisms, which is basically small things, can get food. So we'll watch this short little video. I'll just fast forward a little bit. So I'll show you guys this one. So yeah, if you see this little guy over here, which is a rotifer, I think. Yeah, rotifer, and this big guy over here. It's kind of seems like this little guy, this gray dude, is eating the big green dude, but the big green dude is actually eating this small gray dude. Why is it eating him? Well, obviously it's getting food, right? And I just want to show you guys how it's eating it. You guys see these big spikes? So these big spikes actually inject poison into the little gray guy. And what happens is it starts basically eating the little gray dude from the inside out. So that's basically how feeding works. And there's another type of feeding called filter feeding. So these little guys, right, they are also small organisms. They're very, very small. You can't see them. And they're basically filter feeding. They're feeding off of you guys see these small little dots flying around. That's what they're eating. They're eating these things, right? So yeah. Okay, what more do we have? I think there is like another, oh yes, this guy. All right, so this thing, right, it has this little mouth at the end over here and it basically eats stuff. Right?
This one is cool.
Yeah, this one is kind of cool. It's like an elephant, right? Look at this little big long mouth. And okay, this one is my favorite because it actually shows something eating. Oh yeah, there we go. See? So this is a big organism. You can see its mouth over here. This is its mouth, and boom, it eats something. And this thing just dies immediately. The thing that it ate just died immediately. See that? Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Because this is all happening beneath our feet in water. we can't see them. So this is why biology is so good. It's like such a uh it's just such like a how do I say it? It's such a fun um sort of um sort of study because you can see things that are happening that you can't normally see with just your eyes. So this is all pretty awesome and stuff, right? And we can see that there's another one, this big gray bug trying to eat this lawn green organism, but it actually can't eat it because it's too big for him. So it just flies away or swims away. All right. So yeah, that's basically how microorganisms eat things. And that was pretty awesome, right? You guys have to admit. All right. So nutrition. Okay, respiration, another thing that viruses they can't do. Respiration is basically how cells and organisms break down the food that they get, that they, sorry, it's basically the process in which animals or organisms, they break down the food that they eat to get energy. So another definition for respiration is metabolism. Metabolism is just a process in which metabolism is just a process in which food gets broken down to make energy. And there's two types of metabolism, two types of respiration, or actually, sorry, just two types of metabolism, digestion and cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is when cells, they use sugar or they use sugar and oxygen, and they basically make energy from it. And we'll talk more about cellular respiration in a different lesson, but just know that in metabolism or respiration, right? These two are related. Just know that in respiration, there's something called cellular respiration. And digestion, right? Digestion is basically where nutrients are broken down into simpler forms, right? You get a big clump of something, you break down into smaller clumps. That's how digestion works. And it's easier for living things to use. And metabolism is basically the process in which you turn food into energy. So yeah, this is our respiration. It's a lot of information, but just know that all of this is happening inside of you, and this is what respiration is. And Anna said that H2O equals water or air. So H2O equals water. H2O is not air. Air is different. And yeah, we can see here, this is the process of cellular respiration. It is a pretty famous process, but this is kind of complicated. So that's why I added these words, right? These words, glucose, which is sugar. So this is sugar. This is the sugar we eat. All right, this is the sugar we eat. And this sugar plus oxygen, wow, what do you get? You get energy. You get energy from the sugar and oxygen. If you mix them together, your cells mix them together and you get energy released. And this energy that is released, it can do stuff for your cells. It can help your cell move around. It can help your cell eat more food. And when you're moving around, all of these stuff are happening inside of you. And of course, it creates something called carbon dioxide and water. So when we breathe out, we're basically breathing out carbon dioxide. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. All right, next slide. Okay, so this slide talks about transport. So I won't really go into detail because we are sort of running out of time. We do have actually 3 more slides to go. Okay, actually we will actually just end the lesson right now because we don't really have that much time. And then again, I do want the class to go a little bit more slow compared to last time. Like last time I taught, my first time that I taught. So I will make the class more slower this time to help you guys better take in the knowledge that you guys are learning. So next week we will continue talking about the introduction to biology and all of the life processes. So yeah, so I hope you guys had fun in today's lesson, and I do hope to see you guys next week again. So if you guys have any questions, you guys can leave. If you guys have any question, you guys may stay, but if you guys don't, you guys may leave. So yeah, thank you guys for coming
Bye.
to class. Bye guys. So thank you guys for coming to today's class. Hoping you guys that you can come back next week to learn more about the processes of life. So yeah, bye bye.